Trey starts it off an early pick from Favors, gets in the lane, left-hander.
And that's it for production today. We don't have a band. So that is Trey Burke, kind of hollow and not quite working the way it's supposed to. Doing these shows from a hotel is always a little bit of a mystery. We got the NBA 5. We'll break down the opening night of the Utah Jazz. It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip-Off. Pow. Hello, hope you're well. We will also take your questions at some point on the program today, so throw those in for you. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. Night number 1 is in the books, a loss to the Houston Rockets. I don't know if it was a disappointing night or not. I think some of us, including myself, thought we'd get that one in some sort of kind of fun surprise along the way. But if you looked at the beginning of their schedule and thought we were going to get more than 2 or 3 by the end of the month, then you probably were outwardly optimistic in that one. So we'll get it. We'll be home Saturday against Phoenix. They blew out the Lakers last night. That one's tickets are still available for that game. So if you get a chance and want to come on out on Saturday, we'd love to have you. All right, let's I don't think I got it. I should start the Daily DeVar. I thought the Daily DeVar last night was the idea that Dante Exum and Joe Ingles, Joe Ingles, sorry. That's Dante's childhood hero, first autograph he ever got in his life, and then they end up making their NBA debut together on the exact same team on the same night. I thought that was a pretty good little feel-good aspect to the story last night in the ball game. So I thought I'd throw that one out there as our Daily DeVar. If you're new to the program, the Daily DeVar stems from, and if you're not new to the program, you're like, oh my God, that story again, stems from a friend of mine who, I guess probably 2 years ago now, kind of at one of those moments when it just didn't feel great to be a Jazz fan, came up and told me how much he loved everything that was going on and and this and that and how great it was and all these things and how much he loved all the players. And I thought to myself, this guy's enjoying himself way more than the rest of us and is in taking focus on all of the correct things rather than the negatives, and we should all take a note from him. And so we started this thing called the Daily VAR to open up the show every single day to kind of remind us of why we're sports fans and what it's all about. Daily VAR might simply have been just being back in the arena with everyone. Or Daily DeVar could have been the Giants winning the World Series. Or Daily DeVar could have been what I did to Marin's little sister. Let's call it that, instead of the Playboy famed Angie Treasure, for those who are in that world. For those who don't know this story, I didn't know it the whole time. Playboy put out a list of best NBA follows, and one of our kind of tweet-up people, Angie Treasure at Snark Tank, got honored as one of those people in the NBA as the best Twitter follow. So it's great fun then to play around with the fact that she's on Playboy and in Playboy and all that kind of stuff. So and then I played it up last night, so we'll see. Maybe I offended them for all I know. All right, let's hit the NBA 5. Let's look at the rookies first. Nick Stauskas, 3 of 10 last night, minus 19 while he was on the floor for his 9 points. New Orleans Noel had 6 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, but 2 of 11 and just 2 of 6 in the free throw line. This was not a breakout night for the rookies. Andrew Wiggins, just 6 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. I guess he didn't get the 20 I thought he'd get on his opening night. 2 of 5, just 18 minutes, minus 4. Jabari Parker went 3 of 9. 8 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, minus 13. Marcus Smart was plus 20, though, 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. And Doug McDermott seems to be the one that just kind of is assimilating without much difficulty. He had 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists, and was plus 16 on the game as Chicago embarrassed New York. A bunch of the first-year storylines all came to in the opening night of the NBA. Would Russell Westbrook shoot every time without Kevin Durant? Maybe close. He had 38 points. He shot 26 shots. He used another 7 or 8 possessions at the free throw line as he went 15 of 16 from the line to finish with 38 points. They are paper thin right now, though, and went into Portland and lost last night. Portland, Memphis, and Houston, if the opening 2 nights or night, in the case of everybody else, is an indicator, the 4th seed in the West Well, the 4th seed in the West might be the Warriors. But who wins? Who advances the rest in the West? It's going to be based on bench. Because Memphis's bench, Vince Carter doesn't look right. I'm hearing reports that his health is not right. Quincy Pondexter's got to come back. Costa Kufis is there for them. Portland's bench looked terrible last night. Chris came in the game a little something, but C.J. McCollum was probably the key for them. Didn't give them much of anything down the stretch. And Houston, we saw last night that Papanikolaou obviously can be really, really good. I was very impressed with Jason Terry at 37. Their backup center is Tarek Black. If Patrick Beverley's out for a while, I guess Isaiah Cannon plays. So, I think those are 3 really, really good teams with some great starting lineups that all have benches that are pretty weak. And we'll be curious to see which of those benches comes together to give their team any sort of a bump along the way. The Warriors, though, have figured out their bench. It's Andre Iguodala, and last night against the Kings, who may be terrible, the Warriors were Andre Iguodala was plus 25 when he was on the floor last night off the bench for the Golden State Warriors. Eastern Conference, Julius Randle, by the way, in the West is out for the year, and the Lakers lost by 20 again. We can play the closest to the pin game every single night. When will the Lakers go down 20? Knicks weren't much better, though. Knicks trailed by 35 at one point last night, lost 104-80, and just simply couldn't score in the new triangle. They're starting Stoudemire with Carmelo. Carmelo led the Knicks with 14 points. Boston shot 56% and blew out Brooklyn, 121-105. They had 62 points in the paint. I have to admit, this is the surprise to me a little bit. 8 players in double figures in the night for Boston, and almost all of them took at least 3 3-point attempts. So they've really figured out a way to spread the floor, get things done. Chris Bosh is going to be an interesting story to watch this year. He went right back to Toronto days, 26 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists last night as he was carried Miami. Curious to see what happens with that team. I think it's going to be interesting. I would guess that fan base is pretty into it. I'll bet there's a real collective energy inside of it. We'll see. And Charlotte got themselves into a tussle last night with Milwaukee in a tough game that went to overtime. And the Kemba Walker had to hit a game winner or a game overtime forcer in regulation and a game winner in overtime for Charlotte. I think Charlotte's really going to have a tough time scoring with the Walker, Stevenson, and Jefferson as their primary guys. Though, let's see, Blazer Bad. Those, I believe, are my NBA notes. Those, my friends, are the NBA 5. If you want to interact with the Jazz broadcast, you can call 801-200-3738. We have a quick take question for Ron Boone every night. You actually can do it during the middle of a game. You might want to write down this number because, in theory, if something is going on during the game and you asked a question, it is possible for me to grab that and play it on the air. That's 801-200-3738. 801-200-3738 is the phone number. So if you're watching the game really you probably ask it early though, because we take that question for Ron Boone usually in the second quarter of ball games. All right, let's get into the Jazz game last night. You know what? The other guys are really good sometimes. I think we're going to have to remember that a lot. We're going to do things right and do things well and try to do things well, and then they're going to Papanikolaou and Jason Terry buried shots, and Trevor Ariza, who's the 4th best effective field goal percentage catch and shoot guy in the NBA, showed up and did exactly that last night, and in Houston beat us. And it's an interesting night because I thought we saw some glimpses, shot 60% offensively in the first half. I thought we saw the game plan trying to be executed. They decided to take Harden out of the game, force Harden into not getting the free throw line. For the most part, he did not get to the line during the night, and the Jazz did a much better, had a game plan on how they wanted to do that, and he created 10 assists, and as Andy Larson pointed out on Salt City Hoops, those 10 assists were all 3-pointers. That's pretty incredible. I mean, that's a hell of a night for James Harden. One of the 10 best, 5 best offensive players in the NBA, and then he becomes 10 best when you count that he's not a very good defensive player along the way. And that's what's going to happen. The Rockets hit 16 of 32 on uncontested jumpers, and we hit 9 for 23. So, we weren't getting a lot. 23 uncontested shots is not a great amount, but we only hit 9 of 23. This is a little bit of a concern because at some point you just can't overcome this, and this was a problem last year. If you go back and look at last year, we had some nights, lots of nights, frankly, where we just simply didn't hit open shots. Um, and you can do all the things you want offensively and all these other aspects of things, but if you don't hit open shots, you're not going to be very good. We were one of the lower teams in the NBA last year making open shots. 9 for 23 is not going to get it done. We're actually pretty decent. 24 for 46 on contested shots on the offensive end. But we saw some ball moving. We saw the cuts. We saw the action. We saw attempted togetherness. We haven't figured out what to do when someone starts to overplay us yet. These are all parts of the progression. They're there, and as the guys play together more and more, those plays will become more common sense. And frankly, you got to make them once or twice. And then once you make them once or twice, then you begin to believe you can do it again. But we saw some neat things. There was a sideline out of bounds early, which was executed perfectly, where Dante Exum hits Rudy Gobert. There was some really good early transition defense on James Harden early in the game. Then the transition defense kind of fell apart a little bit as the night went on, and the Jazz ended up kind of going back to allowing high level of transition points. What's interesting a little bit on the night to me is some of the areas in which the Jazz struggled a year ago, just didn't disappear overnight as I think everybody had maybe hoped they would a little bit. In that the corner three last night, the Rockets hit 7 of 8 on corner threes. That Jazz were the worst team in the NBA defending the corner three a year ago. 18 fast break points. That gets to be a lot. That's not cutting off transition the way the Jazz had hoped they would. The Jazz actually ended up with 13 offensive rebounds, which I think is more than they anticipated, as they were instead trying to get back in transition defense last night. So, and we ended up shooting 47% from the field, which isn't bad, but when it's only 3 of 18 from the field from 3, it's really not very good. And when you start to look at it, what we really did was we were good around the rim, and that was it. Depending on which breakdown you use, our outside shooting from 3 obviously was terrible. We were 2 of 7 on corner threes, and we were 1 of 11 on anything above the break. 16 to 23 feet last night. We hit 2 of 9 shots from 16 to 23 feet last night. That's a lot of shots actually in that area. But once we got inside, about 5 feet, we shot 64% and got all of our baskets down low. We ended up, if you break it to the basics, which is restricted area, paint, non-restricted area, mid-range, so that's outside of the key jumper, and then the threes. We were 4 of 14 on mid-range jumpers. We were 8 of 18 in the little area around the basket from 5 or 6, 7 feet, which is really just it's a very low percentage shot. We're actually above league average at that point. Strangely, for the league average on that shot's about non-paint shot. Excuse me, a paint shot non-restricted area is only 39%. We were good around the rim at 74%. So most of our baskets came inside. We weren't able to get anything on the outside in this matchup against the Rockets. Quinn said afterwards that foul trouble kind of disrupted a little bit of what we wanted to do. He was pretty cautious with Derek Favors. He got 2 fouls, took him out, then put him back. Plus minus would tell you Derek's pretty darn important to this team. He was at 0 on plus minus, while Gordon was -8, Ennis was -12, Alec was -14, and Trey was -14. Rudy Gobert was -10. Here's a little one to keep a tiny bit of an eye on. It's early. I don't want to make too big a deal out of anything. But the one thing that I have talked a lot about is that over time is we've got to find a way to make sure that we can score when Rudy Gobert is on the floor. Last night was a night where we couldn't score. I put it up and empty the noggin, but if the primary lineups in which Rudy was on the floor, we just simply couldn't score last night. Let me see if I can find it in better numbers than what I usually have. Let me see what details I have here. But last night when Rudy was on the floor, our offensive rating was an 85.9. Trevor's on the floor, it's a 116. Derek's on the floor, it's a 115. Gordon, it's a 104. Trey, it's a 105. Alec, it's a 102. Hood was a 95. Ennis was a 94. And Rudy Gobert was an 86. That's really, that's a little disconcerting. Of whether or not. The other one is, can we ever defend with Ennis on the floor? Well, last night, and somewhat this has to do with your matching up with Alec. We were worse defensively when Alec was on the floor in his 36 minutes, and then followed by Ennis at 116. And actually, interestingly, Rudy, we weren't very good defensively when Rudy was on the floor last night. Rudy was good against Dwight Howard specifically. Dwight Howard only scored 2 points, but we were not a good defensive team last night when he was on the floor. We were 115.2 and Ennis was a 116.8. So, it's a little, it's pretty interesting to me. If you keep an eye on it, when Rudy was on the floor last night, I'm trying to see what value I have on this. They have it all up to. They have everything to 48 minutes. We shot 33% last night when Rudy was on the floor. I would say that's a little disconcerting. Let's contrast it. We shot 58% when he was on the bench. Okay, so his lack of gravity, as Kevin Pelton would talk about, or his ability to pull people his direction, has an impact on things. All right, I think those are the notes I have for today. Game plan, we executed it. Saw some flashes, uncontested. Gordon Hayward last night, by the way, 0 for 4 on uncontested jumpers is the bad news. 7 assists, 2 secondary assists, and a free throw assist. So really 10 assists last night. Pretty good. Defending at the rim last night. Favors, Rockets shot 6 of 13 with Favors at the rim, and Gobert, they shot 6 of 11. Let's go to the questions. Are there any? Does anybody? No? Oh, yes. All right. Not trying to overreact, but Gobert was solid against Howard, and Ennis looked lost and struggled. If Gobert continues at a high level, could we see him and Favors start together, or is he needed to back Favors up to give him a rest? I think that's a little bit of. I think you're zeroing on things, and there's 2 plays. I'm gonna have to go back and watch. You know what? We could probably go back and watch them right now. Let's see if we can do this. Let's go see if we can find it. Love technology and our ability to do this. They're Papanikolaou threes. And in the Papanikolaou threes, Ennis gets beat on 2 of them back to back. And I don't know. I know the game plan was really to take away the paint from Harden. So was Ennis unaware of the Papanikolaou ability to make threes, or was he executing the game plan fine and we're banging on him for something that's not his fault? Let's see if we can get these to come up. Gotta love hotel internet. It's fairly spotty. All right. Oh, it's gonna buffer. This may be a total fail. So Harden drives here. Well, this one's not going to be on. Wow, that's terrible defense. What happened? Let's go see. Let's see if we can figure out on the Papanikolaou threes. This actually might be an interesting little exercise. So I think you guys are getting this, aren't you? Let me check and make sure. Hayward gets caught inside and leaves. Because Hayward, I think Hayward's at the 4 in this lineup, or is that Booker? I'll have to figure this one out. But I want to make sure you guys are getting this. Are you getting this? Yeah, looks like you are. Okay, let's back this up. This is pretty interesting. See where this broke down. For those of you on audio, I apologize. This is not great for you. So they're in an early transition. Harden brings it up to the front court. I think this is just going to be inexperience. Harden comes up. Hayward's kind of got, man, they're building a wall, and then Hayward gets sucked in to Harden and doesn't get out to Papanikolaou. But that's, their first priority is to build that wall defensively in transition and try to make sure that they defend that. That's a wide open threat. I mean, that's a major defensive breakdown. But if you go run out to Harden on that early play, then you end up giving up a wide open 3 the other way. So, this is where Harden had incredible impact on the game. Now we're into a half-court set with a big, huge graphic on the screen, and we get to find out what Matt Harpering thinks of. Let's see. So here's Cantor on, it's buffering, it's good time. Cantor's up here on Papanikolaou, and so Cantor's dropping into the lane as he's supposed to cut off the lane from Harden. We knock the ball away. Ariza works the right side. They come back up. Now they want Harden to not see space. So Cantor has dropped in the lane down here and is trying to make Harden not see space. Quick pass out. And Papanikolaou, quick release, hits the three. I'm not sure that's as bad a defense by Ennis as I think it feels. That's what I suspected. Now, I'm not, they really did. They wanted these guys moving out there before that play so that Harden never started the penetration, and Papanikolaou made him pay. And to some extent, you're trying to make these other guys beat you, and they did a good job since Harden was 6 of 18 and only went to the line 6 times. Here's another one. I think it's just 2 plays later. And same thing may happen. And I'm sure the coaching staff would like to say that he's supposed to get back faster to his man. It's buffering again. So, again, it's going to be the same play. They get Harden on the inbound to Alec. And we'll see. And I bet you we're going to see, if it comes through, we're going to see the exact same thing. Cantor slides down with Harden, and they pop it back out to Papanikolaou. I'm not sure you can really bang on Ennis for these. I think there's probably some level where this is going to be an issue for Ennis. Is he quick and agile enough to defend 4s if he's going to be a 4? But I'm not sure that Ennis had as bad a day as he probably wasn't great, but I'm not sure Ennis. I'm not sure we're being fair on those two. And I saw him at the time and said, and you can listen to me in postcast, I kind of say I'm not sure. Bill Simmons has been comparing Dante to the rookie year Kobe Bryant lately. Your thoughts? That a week earlier he said he sucked and he was never going to play again. I have no comment on that. I just think it's, and I'm not even sure that, I almost wonder if Bill's even watched Dante Exum. I'm so bizarre. It's bizarre to me on his flip-flopping on Dante. Nobody has any idea on Dante Exum, if they're honest. He's incredibly talented. He's incredibly young. He's incredibly overwhelmed. He's incredibly gifted. See what happens. I have no idea. How do you feel the overall minute distribution of the roster? Dante played just 10 minutes. Burke struggled for nearly 3 quarters but continued to play heavy minutes. Why is this? Oh, we're banging the coach already. Booker, Exum only 2. Yeah, I mean, but you got to be, I love plus minus, but you got to be a little careful. Booker and Exum were the only 2 with the positive plus minuses. You got to be a little careful on plus minus on a case like Dante's because you're protecting him enough. Now, they tried to, I think, if you look, never have Dante go up against Patrick Beverley last night. And so that was a little bit of it because I'm not sure Dante's handle is good enough to handle playing up against Patrick Beverley. Booker played very well last night. He adds a lot of energy, does a lot of things. Veteran, knows how to play. I think Quinn said after the game that the minutes got screwed up because of the foul trouble and Favors. There's a chance when Dante comes into the game that you could lose 6, 7, 8 points pretty quickly. I mean, it's happened already in the preseason. He could get completely overwhelmed if you let him up against Beverly. And if you're in a 4-point, 6-point, 8-point game and you bring Dante in and things fall apart for 5 minutes, game's over. So I thought that Quinn tried last night to prevent the game from being over. And in fact, Burke led a charge that got the Jazz within 2 or 3 at the end of the 3rd quarter. So, I think Dante's going to have some low-minute nights. I mean, I said the other day I thought there was a chance he'd go D-League to get minutes, but I don't think so. Was there ever a chance Ennis's deal would accept a deal lower, too much lower than Nikolai Vukovic deal, similar players, although admittedly Vukovic is longer and more polished? I haven't brought up that I didn't. This probably is personal frustration. I've told you guys for a month there's no deal there. There's just no deal. There was no deal. There was never a chance to get a deal done on that in any way, just from everyone's standpoint. And frankly, as I said yesterday, there's a lot we have to learn about Ennis before I'm sure I'd even offer him a deal. So I don't think it has a comparable to Nikolai Vukovic, and I haven't mentioned it today because I didn't think it was a story. Just because I love Woj, he does incredible work. He's a great ambassador to the league as a reporter. But just because Woj says something doesn't suddenly make it news. So I wasn't redoing the same thing we did over again on the contract stuff today. Please tell me we aren't having Ennis guard Dirk tonight. Wild thought. Have Rudy start to use his wingspan against Dirk. One-legged fadeaway offensive flow may suffer, but I mean, I don't think you can go change your starting lineup every single night. But I think there is going to be this thing that happens this year, by the way, and I'm not going to bring it up every time because I don't want to get into a last year versus this year and all that kind of crap. But there's going to be a bunch of things that happen this year that make you suddenly realize that Tyrone Corbin's decisions, and that Tyrone's not an idiot. Like Ty's certainly not. Like there's nothing about Tyrone Corbin that's new. He's very bright. He's very smart. He may coach differently. He may not. There's some things you may not like about him. You may think he's antiquated and so. There's probably, but he's also a pretty good basketball mind. Has been around the game for a long time. People were furious that Ennis and Derek didn't play together last year. Well, we may find out here in the opening month of the season or 2 months of the season that that's a really hard match to have on the floor together. We may find out there's a reason why Marvin Williams started last year. And that may come to fruition because, yes, Ennis, in all likelihood, has to guard Dirk tonight unless Favors is going to do it. But we got to avoid Favors getting in foul trouble in the first minute of every game like it happened last night. It looked like Houston adjusted our offense after the first quarter. I thought they knew exactly what our plays were and how to stop it. If correct, is this cause for worry? Well, I mean, the whole concept of our offense is a flows and a movement and a read and react, so that what our guys eventually will learn is when somebody plays it one way, how you react to it correctly, and they'll eventually have played enough together that they'll know what the other one's going to do. But we're nowhere near having that happen yet. I mean, even if you look at training camp, played 8 games, Alec missed 3, Derek missed 1, right? And Trey missed 1. So even our starting 5, which pretty good offensively last night, I think we were 11 of 16 shooting while they were on the floor last night. They didn't defend very well, but I think that group had a pretty good offensive night, that starting lineup. 10 of 16 shooting, scored 25 points in 11 minutes. That'll work. The starting 5 was very good offensively, but they still have not played very much together. We fell apart last night offensively. The lineup of when Rudy came in for Derek, we couldn't score. That lineup when Rudy came in for Derek, that lineup was 1 for 11 shooting. And then another lineup was Rudy in for, our small lineup didn't do well. When Gordon played for 3 minutes, at the 4 we got outscored by 7 points. Got outscored 11-4 in the 3 minutes that lineup was on the floor. But now that lineup also of Gordon in for Derek or Rudy in for Derek defended really well. Played 6 minutes of basketball, scores 5-4. But we couldn't. We were 1 of 11 shooting, and that was only with 2 offensive rebounds. We weren't even doing the tip back thing the whole time. So I don't know. I have no idea what the so on that was actually. But I don't know if they adjusted, but it wouldn't be a worry because the system offensively is for people to react. I'm sorry, trying to. Taylor, we have now seen a team that has scouted us offensively and defensively. What did Houston do as part of their scout report? I think they did very little, actually. I mean, they scouted, but they didn't have a shoot around. They had a walkthrough in their hotel or meeting. So I don't think their scouting was at a particularly high level last night. And their offense is, their offense is pretty basic. They run 3 or 4 sets, and then everything else is just James Harden pushing and creating. And he's one of the top 10 players in the league, so he's good enough to do it. I mean, let's not forget they have 2 of the top 10 players in the league. They're pretty good. All right, I think I'm about to wrap this up. Rory Jones, can I gauge current morale of the team? Just curious how they felt about the loss last night. And also Bill Simmons named his podcast appropriately BS. I don't want to bang on Bill because I think he's changed the industry and he's done amazing things, and Grantland's incredible. And but I do think there's a level where some of his stuff he's been talking about recently, I just think he's all over the map on Dante and us, and so I don't have any idea how to react to it. And I don't think he watches us. I mean, we're at a point where nobody's going to see us. So you got to understand that. I know everybody wants to know what the national guy has to say, but the national guy's never seeing us play. They're not going to League Pass to watch us. It just isn't. We're not at that stage. I think the morale's fine. It was one game. It's a long way to go. I think they know that. It's going to be a tough month, though, so I think that's probably a bigger issue. All right, to the rest of you who I did not get your questions, I apologize, but it is time for me to move on with my day. It's 9:30 in the morning here in Dallas. Have a good one. Be safe.